more and more lands to fossil fuel development. It locks up and locks them up from potential productive use, other productive uses like renewable energy development and climate mitigation, and makes it even easier for industry to avoid public input and the consequences of their actions. So let's talk about this whole leasing issue. Mr. Squillace, on average, how many drilling permits are approved each year on federal land?
Now, Chuck Schumer and Manchin are holding meetings on how to move forward with President Biden's Build Back Better bill. Schumer has announced that the bill will be passed very soon. However, there will be some adjustments to the finalized version of the bill. Watch to the end to find out how to receive your fourth stimulus check. Schumer has said that he and other centrist Democrats like Manchin had discussed moving a bill that would unwind parts of the Republican tax law enacted when the former president was in office. The good news is that Schumer has confirmed that the bill could be passed in just a few weeks. The goal is to ease inflation, which is badly hurting economies, and President Biden's approval ratings. Democrats are eyeing a fast-track budget process that would bypass the need for 60 votes in the Senate necessary to overcome a Republican filibuster. Schumer told reporters today, "Look, reconciliation is very, very important, and I met with Manchin this morning. Our meetings were both preliminary and good, and we're going to continue to keep talking." Schumer added to reporters, "If you want to get rid of inflation, the only way to do it is to undo a lot of the former president's tax cuts and raise rates. No Republican is ever going to do that. So the only way to get rid of inflation is through reconciliation." Manchin of West Virginia, who played a key role in stalling the Democrats' sweeping spending bill, cited concerns about its impact on national debt and deficit. After today, meetings with Schumer, Manchin told reporters, "We talked about the tax code and doing something to combat inflation. He's just as concerned about inflation as I am. Reconciliation to me is about getting inflation under control, paying down debt, and getting a handle on what's going on." The West Virginia Democrat voiced an interest in potentially raising the corporate tax rate to 25% and the capital gains rate tax to 28%. To pass the reconciliation bill, Schumer would actually need to keep his entire caucus together due to the evenly split margins in the Senate. It's unclear if centrist Democrat Chris Sinema of Arizona, who also played a big role in Build Back Better legislation, is open to the negotiations. Schumer has also said that today that President Biden is getting closer to canceling up to $50,000 in student loan debt for borrowers through executive action. During a speech on the Senate floor, Schumer said, "I'll keep urging the president to take this action, an important step. And I say to my colleagues, I think the president is moving in our direction. My talks with him and his staff have been getting very fruitful over the last little while, and I'm hopeful that we will do the right thing together." Now, the Biden administration extended the moratorium on federal student loan payments earlier this month, through the end of August. According to the Department of Education, a total of 43 million Americans owe a total of about $1.75 trillion in student loan debt. That's a number that has nearly doubled in the past decade. The progressive wing of the Democratic Party started pressuring Biden in the first weeks of his presidency to take executive action to cancel $50,000 in student loan debt. But President Biden shot down the proposal last year. With Schumer's optimism Wednesday, though, the president can move on his student debt ahead of the midterm elections this year. Jen Psaki actually told reporters the president has been considering and looking at options for how to provide more relief to students across the country. Meanwhile, Republicans have been united in their opposition to any student debt forgiveness. The GOP senators introduced an act that would actually end the suspension of repayments and prevent the president from canceling student debt. Senate Republican Mike Braun said in an official statement this week that the majority of Americans do not have college degrees, and this transfer of wealth is not a move to advance equity, but rather a taxpayer handout to appease activists. Folks, do you think President Biden is doing a good job on handling student debt? Tell me what you think in the comments.
Senator? I do.
Senator Whitehouse.
Chair recognizes Senator Kennedy first and then Senator.
Congress is being urged to allocate more money towards a fourth round of stimulus checks. Calls for $400 stimulus payments for people are growing significantly, and that's the good news that we want to see. Here's some good news for this week. Colorado Governor Jared Polis wants to issue checks to every Colorado taxpayer over the next few months. Individuals will receive $400 each, and couples will get around $800. The refunds are required under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, or TABOR, but we're not set to go out until next year. In an interview with the CBS News, the governor said if the legislature passes a bill, he'll put the checks in the mail this summer. Just get it out to people quickly, he said. No reason for the government to be sitting on your money for 9 to 10 months. The governor says between $4 a gallon of gas and a 40-year high inflation, many Coloradans are struggling to make ends meet, and he says the state government can and should help. The state is in the best fiscal shape. Poll's told reporters this week give it back, and sooner rather than later. State economists project budget surpluses over the next 3 years, but they also warn the economic outlook is subject to variables, including inflation and supply chain disruptions. Polis says that this volatility was factored into the budget. 15% of the state's budget, about $2 billion, is in the state's rainy day fund. This is about double what it was before the crisis. Governor Polis says the state is more prepared than ever, and Coloradans need help now. He stated peak inflation for a lot of projections we're seeing is now. But you're right, no one knows about this year. No one knows about next year. The budget for the upcoming fiscal year is $36 billion, which is $2 billion more than last year's. That does not include billions of dollars in one-time federal stimulus funds to help backfill losses incurred by the crisis. Even before Polis' announcement about early refunds, Republicans criticized him after he delayed millions of dollars in new fees, including a gas fee until next year. The fees were set to kick in this year as part of a transportation funding bill that the governor signed into law. Relief is also continuing to go out to people that need it the most. Many state governments have already decided to move forward with their own state stimulus check. Earlier this year, the Hawaii governor sent a tax rebate of $100 to every Hawaii taxpayer, with an additional $100 payment per dependent. That's good news, everybody, and tell me if your state's doing this. Folks, a ton of good news with the fourth stimulus check. Here it is. Up to $2,000 stimulus payments can be claimed right now. So watch the end of the video to learn how to receive a stimulus check. Thousands of families in need can pick up new payments right now. Each eligible family in Phoenix, Arizona will be getting a total of $12,000 via debit cards during the next 12 months under the city's financial assistance program. The recurring payments serve as an experiment with universal basic income rather than one-off stimulus checks. Currently, there are over various states and cities offering universal basic income programs to mostly low-income residents by using funds from the American Rescue Act. Now, gas prices in California are beginning to drop from the highs this year, but the $5.73 average price of a gallon of regular unleaded fuel remains $1.79 higher than what Californians paid at the pump 1 year ago.
Abortions. We cannot go back to the days of forcing a woman to carry a pregnancy or go through a childbirth that could cause her illness or death. That we cannot go back to. In America today, it is estimated that 1 out of every 4 women will choose to have an abortion by the time they turn 45. In 2019, over 625,000 women in America chose to have an abortion. While no one can say with any degree of certainty how many deaths there will be if abortion is made illegal and women are forced to carry unsafe pregnancies to term, there is no doubt that over a period of time, many thousands of American women will die.